Hi, Shane Saracen. I'm going to do a discussion here, and this may take more than one video. I see these pop up all the time, and it's always interesting reading them. Rolling Stone has the top 100 drummers of all time. Drumeo has a list of the top 100. There's a place called Music Radar. I think there's a top 30 to 50. Drum Chat has one. Chat GPT has one. GPT. And so there's all these different things. And I think the first thing to discover or to think about is most of them say the greatest drummer. Okay, so I wanted to look up greatest. Let me see if I can read this. Greatest, excellent amount or intensity considerably above the normal or average. That's what the greatest is. So best is excellent, efficient, and desirable type of quality. So it's difficult when you look at these. Now, there's a lot of common names across these lists. Now, I can tell you that, and this is no slam to anybody because I think everybody has their favorites, and and there's reasons why I might not think a drummer should be in the top 10, but other people may think they are because they love that type of music, okay? But to me, when you're going to say the best drummers in the world, you really have to subdivide these categories out because, for instance, one name I'm going to bring up out of all these lists, now I just stopped them after 10. I didn't go on. Dave Weckl's name never appeared in the top 10, and to me, that's just ludicrous to think that he's not one of the 10 best drummers ever. And 10 best, 10 greatest. He should be. Should be in all those lists, in my opinion. But for people who aren't following jazz and jazz fusion, they may not know who he is. And the same thing, Meg White shows up in the Rolling Stone. There's no way she's in the same category as a lot of these other people. Now, she's not in the top 10, but she's still listed as one of the top 100 drummers of all time. I'm sorry. What she did with the White Stripes was great. It worked out great, but I don't put her in that category personally. My opinion only. But, so, I'm going to read number one from the Rolling Stone, best 100 greatest drummers. Number one, we're just focusing on the top 10, is John Bonham. He's also number one in Drum Chat, number one in Chat GPT. He is number 3 in Drumeo, and he is number 2 in Music Radar. So I can't deny that John Bonham has been so influential to so many drummers and created a sound and a feel and a groove that a lot of people wanted to copy. So is he one of the most influential drummers ever? Yes. Is he one of the top 10 best in the world? If you're going to put it in a rock category, he certainly is. If you're going to put everybody else in that category, he's probably going to drop down a little, but he's big enough that he made all these categories. So Rolling Stone, number 2 was Keith Moon. Now, when I go to Drumeo, let me find, Keith Moon was not in the top 10. When I go to Drum Chat, Keith Moon was not in the top 10. When I go to Music Radar, let me find out here, I've got them written down. Keith Moon was number 5. When I go to Chat GPT, he was number 4. So first off, it makes me wonder if all of these people, when they're making their list, just look at other people's list. Keith Moon is certainly a unique, a trendsetter, very interesting, if you want to call him that, in his approach, and somewhat had a fusiony recklessness about it that was improvisational, but certainly created a vibe that worked perfectly with that band. Is he my top 10? No. Is he one of the top 50, top 30? Yes. Okay. Number 3 in the Rolling Stone article is Ginger Baker. Ginger Baker certainly was one of the first rock drummers to have that jazzy feel and that improvisational feel. it's a tough one for me with Ginger Baker, because it's certainly, if I go back and dive down that rabbit hole, I can find a ton of things that I like. Is he in my top 10? Probably not. Is he in my top 30? Yes. But on the Rolling Stone article, Ginger is third. On the Drumeo, let me see if I've got Ginger Baker in there. He is not on the top 10. On the Music Radar, he's number 4. On the Drum Chat, he is not in the top 10. And on Chat GBT, he's number 5. So again, it makes me wonder if they look at these other lists to draw theirs from. Rolling Stone, number 4, Neil Peart. Neil Peart is obviously among one of the most influential drummers ever, especially in that progressive rock vein, because everybody jumped on board to create that. And Neil was like a composer that wrote what he considered to be the best drum part and then tried to play it to perfection every single time. So he didn't have a lot of improvisation stuff. And one part of the solo he did, but primarily when he played the tune, he perfected it and thought, this is the best I could come up with for this tune. My job is to play it to perfection every night. And there's something to be said for that. It's a unique thing. So in the rock world, he's certainly one of the top 10. Rolling Stone, he's number 4. Drumeo, he's number 2. Drum Chat, he's number 8. Music Radar, he's number 1. And of course, on Chat GBT, he's number 2. So he's highly influential no matter what genre. I'm sure a lot of people that don't listen to rock dismiss it because they feel like it's not necessarily that difficult. But I feel like he created something that worked perfectly with Rush. And so he's definitely in the top 10, in my opinion. Mostly just because of his influence. So, number 5 in the Rolling Stone is Hal Blaine. So a lot of people are not even going to know who that is. Hal Blaine is one of the most recorded studio drummers ever, and you would be hard-pressed to go through anything from the 60s and 70s and maybe some of the 80s that wasn't commercially on TV or radio or whatever that he didn't play on. So he's one of those studio drummers that I call him faceless, because if it wasn't for a modern drummer making a lot of studio drummers well known, most people would know who they are. But Hal Blaine's certainly one of the most influential of all time. He's number 5 on the Rolling Stone Top 100 Ever. On Drumeo, Hal Blaine is not in the top 10. On Drum Chat, Hal Blaine is not in the top 10. On Music Radar, Hal Blaine is not in the top 10. And on Chat GBT, Hal Blaine is not in the top 10. So Rolling Stone was sensitive enough to realize that this guy played on tons of things that were highly influential. So Hal Blaine probably should be on most of these lists. But it's hard sometimes for studio drummers that are just playing background stuff, unless it's something that's super unique for people to put them in the best ever category. Number 6 on Rolling Stone is a dual thing. It's Clyde Stubblefield and John Jabo Starks from James Brown. And anyway, amazing duo and whatever. And that's the only list that I have that they are in the top 10. They're not in any of the other top 10 lists. But certainly when it comes to that commercial funk and groove and people sampling and stuff, those are names that you're going to see a lot. So highly influential. Probably not my top 10, but top 30, probably so. Number 7, Gene Krupa in Rolling Stone's list, number 7. Gene Krupa probably brought the drums to the forefront. He brought the drums as a focal point because of his soloing and his theatrics and whatnot, and became almost like a movie star quality about him. And he's number 7 on Rolling Stone. He is not in the top 10 of Drumeo. On Chat GBT, he is not in the top 10. Excuse me. On Chat GBT, he's not in the top 10. On Drum Chat, he is not in the top 10. And on Music Radar, he is not in the top 10. probably because he existed so long ago that they just dismissed that as jazz. Number 8 on the Rolling Stone list is Mitch Mitchell. Mitch Mitchell, of course, of Jimi Hendrix and the Jimi Hendrix Experience. So one of those drummers that again, like Ginger Baker, had that jazz influence and applied it to rock. I don't want to say reckless, but definitely improvisational in the way that he played and on the aggressive side. Certainly a top 20 to 30 in the rock world, in my opinion, but he's number 8 on Rolling Stone. On Drumeo, he is not in the top 10. On Drum Chat, let me see here, just to double check, make sure I don't say this wrong. He is not. Music Radar, he is not. And on ChatGPT, he is not. Okay. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I jumped around. Mitch Mitchell was number 8 on Rolling Stone. He was not on the top of the Drumeo list. On the Drum Chat, he was not in the top 10. On the Music Radar, he was not in the top. However, on the ChatGPT, he was number 10. Number 9 on Rolling Stone was Al Jackson Jr. from Booker T and the MGs, Groove Master and whatever. And Rolling Stone is acknowledging not only the influence of the drummer, but probably the band. He's not in the top 10 of any of the other lists, but certainly an influential drummer. And number 10 on the Rolling Stone list is Stewart Copeland. And Stewart Copeland, obviously, with what he did with the Police, again, having this improvisational approach and kind of bringing that mixture of rock and reggae and improvisation to the music, created a genre that a lot of people jumped on board with. On Drumeo, Stewart Copeland is 10 as well. On Drum Chat, Stewart Copeland is 7. On Music Radar, Stewart Copeland is 8. And on ChatGPT, he is number 6. So, highly influential for sure. And then the reason I'm bringing this up, Rolling Stone top 10, no Buddy Rich. Buddy Rich is listed as the 15th best drummer, which is ludicrous. So, just there's not a person who wasn't wowed by Buddy. Even if you consider it boring today, what he did was awe-inspiring to generations and generations of drummers. Not on the Rolling Stones top 10 at all. It's listed as 15. On ChatGPT, he's number 2. On Drumeo, he's number 1. On Music Radar, he is number 3. And on ChatGPT, he's number 3. So everybody else got him in the top 10. Rolling Stone did not. And the other name you're probably wondering about is Ringo Starr. Now, Ringo is not in the top 10 of Rolling Stone. He's listed as 14th. Drumeo, Ringo is listed as 7th. And Drum Chat, Ringo is not listed. And on Music Radar, Ringo is not listed. And on ChatGPT, Ringo is number 9. Now, you're probably wondering, well, who's on some of these lists that I didn't mention? So I went through the Rolling Stone one and went off of that. But if I go down the Drum Chat list, it's John Bonham, Buddy Rich, Jeff Porcaro, number 3, Vinnie Colaiuta, number 4, Dennis Chambers, number 5, Tony Williams, Stewart Copeland, Neil Peart, Louis Bellson, and Steve Gadd. So I feel like that list is definitely something that is influential, and a lot of it could be because it's part of the modern drummer era that put a face to so many of these people, and a lot of it was the video era too. Drumeo, Buddy Rich, Neil Peart, John Bonham, Vinnie Colaiuta, Tony Williams, Steve Gadd, Ringo Starr, Billy Cobham, Max Roach, and Stewart Copeland. So again, a very inclusive list of what I consider some of the best and some of the most influential, and I agree with that list in a lot of ways. Music Radar, Neil Peart, John Bonham, Buddy Rich, Ginger Baker, Keith Moon, Danny Carey popped up on this one. The only one he's in the top 10 on. Steve Gadd, Stuart Copeland, Mike Portnoy. First one he's popped up on, and again, Billy Cobham. And then Chat GPT is John Bonham, Neil Peart, Buddy Rich, Keith Moon, Ginger Baker, Stuart Copeland, Dave Grohl popped up, Phil Collins popped up, and Ringo, and then Mitch Mitchell. So, Dave Grohl, my top 10, certainly not. Top 30, 40, 50, probably so. Phil Collins, same thing. But I've got certain favorites that I have that haven't popped up on here at all, being like Steve Smith. Some of the new breed like Todd Sucherman and stuff. But anyway, it's interesting because everybody's going to have a different opinion, but it was just interesting cross-referencing these. And I think the big thing is, what do you consider the best, what do you consider the greatest, and what do you consider the most influential in not only the drumming genre, but in the music genres? Because if you just did rock, the list would change. If you just did jazz, the list would change. And the name I brought up, Dave Weckl, is not on any of these and should be on all of them. So there you go. My opinion. What are your thoughts?